So we are here today to discuss whether rope access belongs in the fire service. I am Kelly Byrne. I am a instructor with CMC Rescue. We've also got some fellow instructors here. We've got Wayne Chapman. Wayne, say hello so everybody knows your voice.
Hi, guys.
That's Wayne Chapman. We got Doug McElmurray. Doug, give us a nice Midwest hello.
Hello.
All right, very accent heavy in the squeaky cheese. Leroy, going to be similar. To let everybody hear your voice. There's Leroy.
Yeah, you betcha, don't you know?
We've hit all the idioms, but I think we're good on the Midwest stuff. Cool. So today's topic is, does rope access belong in the fire service? So rope rescue has generally been the purview of the fire service, at least on the East Coast where I'm from. Most fire departments have some interest in rope rescue. I know out west, a lot of the search and rescue falls under the sheriff's department, but the rope specific stuff falls under the fire department. I'm not messing that up too bad, am I, Wayne? You're a West Coast
correct.
guy.
You're correct.
All right, cool. So if you're listening to the podcast, you probably know what rope access is, but if you don't, if you've never heard of it before, basically rope access is a means of getting somewhere to perform work. The North American agency that governs it, I suppose, would be the Society of Professional Rope Access Technicians. There's a whole certification track for that. You can look that up on their website, but in general, it's just individuals moving about on rope to perform work. So really, the question is, does that kind of rope work belong in the fire service? We'll go around the circle here and see what everybody has to say, and try and find out what we think about it. Wayne, what do you think? Rope access in the fire service, yes or no?
This is one of those topics that's been discussed a lot. I'm not convinced that the skills necessarily are. I understand the argument of being able to do individual, work, descent, ascent, and all that kind of stuff. 33 years in the fire service, I never came across a scenario where those skills were needed. Again, that's Southern California. But at the same time, I guess you could say I could be convinced by some people that say, hey, there is a need, whether it be SPRAT, because I don't really know that somebody can attain and maintain those hours annually, but certainly some of the skill sets, I guess I could be persuaded. Right now, I just don't know, honestly, if it's something that we need.
All right, fair point. I'm definitely biased in favor of it. I'll explain my points at the end, but hopefully I can change at least your mind by the end of it. So, Doug, what's your take on it? Does rope access belong in the fire service? Yes or no?
I think components of it does. Just look at simple little things like rad or uppercut ascending compared to traditional ascending methods. And I'm not saying to ascend like you would in a rope access rope, but just to go up a couple feet if you overshoot on a rappel pickoff or something, I think is very useful and much more user-friendly than a traditional like alpine or leapfrog style of ascending. But that being said, I think there's definitely components of that we can plagiarize blatantly for rope rescue, but I don't think SPRAT is a replacement for rescue.
No, I totally agree. I don't think it's a replacement for rescue. I do think the components of it could be involved. And I think, a wholesale switching to rope access instead of rope rescue is not the answer. But you're right. I think components could be. And again, I'll give my opinion in a second. We'll let Leroy give his pitch. Yay or nay, Leroy? What do you think? Rope access in the fire service or no?
Well, I have thought about this. You have no idea how much I've thought about this. I think as a wholesale thing, the answer would be no. But I think I agree with both you and Doug that there are parts that would be useful. And some of the techniques, if we modified them more to essentially a slight modification to what we would typically do in a rescue, which would simplify things in the long run, I think would be easier. So yes, parts, but as a wholesale thing, the answer would be no.
All right, fair enough. I think I'm pretty on board with that. I look at it as just another way of advancing your skills. I asked a buddy this question, does rope access belong in the fire service? And his analogy was like driving a manual shift car. Like at first you're just focused on, getting the gas just right, letting out the clutch just right. Are you in first gear, third gear? You're worried about your, 5-foot view rather than what's actually going on around you. And just being comfortable on rope allows you to look a little more outward than it does, when you're not that comfortable on rope. So, looking at your average rope rescue class, how long are you actually hanging in a harness, like on rope in a harness, maybe an hour tops, maybe more, maybe less, I guess, depending on the class. I think the average rope access class, 20 to 30 hours you're in your harness. That's a pretty big, leap in time in a harness and on rope. And it just, I think it develops a more comfortable rescuer. I don't think a SPRAT certification is the answer. I don't think it's a bad thing either. If a department has the money to do it, I would do it. Like you have to recertify every 3 years and people would have a long, hard time leveling up. But just to maintain some professional standard and something to aspire to, I don't think it's a bad thing.
I would agree with that from the standpoint of confidence and the standpoint of when I guess I look at rope at SPRAT or rope access in general as more of an educational thing for firefighters or technical rescuers to know what's going on out in the world. Obviously, it's gaining popularity in the U.S. It still lags incredibly behind Europe.
Yes. Yeah. I think, I saw a rescue recently on YouTube that was, with, on an aerial ladder of all things. If you know my thoughts on that. But they were doing some rope access style, techniques on the end of an aerial ladder to go get a, tractor trailer over the side. And it was the lowest amount of force on the aerial. And these guys were just, killing it, getting up and down rope, super comfortable. It was a super clean, rescue. I think one interesting thing to note, like the fire service is always stolen from other fields. We've, the rappelling and ascending we have done up until this point, with the figure eights and the break bar racks is straight out of the caving world. And I just think that if that work is going on, there's workers at height, cell towers and antennas, it's only getting more prevalent. We're just going to come across those incidents more. And I think being comfortable, able to operate in that world than in your traditional firefighting world will become more important as time goes on. Again, maybe not a wholesale, getting away from traditional rope rescue, but I definitely think components of rope access will be coming into the forefront as time goes on. So that's my take on it. I think we're not too far apart. Here's a point I had, and whoever wants to take this one can. I'll make this declarative statement. Whether I believe it or not is another thing, but we'll go with it. I think it's disingenuous to teach somebody to rappel down a rope without teaching them to ascend. Like, how do you teach rappelling without teaching ascending? Like, that's giving somebody a car with a drive but no reverse. Like, just make 3 left turns. You'll be fine. You can turn right that way.
Kelly, I think that's great. I mean, you read old books. And it says, be prepared to come up any rope you go down. So like I said, I agree that being able to ascend is a good skill. In fact, it's an NFPA 1006. It's something that's required of a technical rescuer at the technician level now in the newest 1006. So I do agree with that statement. Absolutely.
Cool. Doug, what do you think on that?
Well, I'd go one step further. Not only do you need to know how to ascend, you actually need to be able to get yourself out of a problem. If you can't rescue yourself, you really don't have any business trying to rescue somebody else. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Yeah, I've been on a couple incidents where we've just let people hang out who've put themselves in a bad spot. Like, we'll get to you when it's over. Just because they couldn't get themselves out of a problem. Leroy, what do you think about that? Rappelling but no ascending. I think they go hand in hand. You?
I think that in a way they go hand in hand, but I'll even go a step further that I don't have a problem putting a guy, and I will use the car over example, right? So the car over example is I get a guy down to do some triage, figure out what's going on, all that kind of stuff, and I lower my rescuers in, my guys that are going to be doing their, whether it be BLS or ALS, make it up, it doesn't really matter.
Sure.
But at that point, whether or not I need a guy to ascend, if I've got a system in place, hey man, I'm a fat kid from the Midwest. Okay? You have a system in place, you can pull me up just as well as I can get myself up. And if it takes cycling the system one more time, to me, that just winds up being a logical decision. Or in the car over scenario, you send down one litter tender short and you bring everybody back in one time.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, that's, definitely traditional rescue based. And there's, I think that's probably the best option in that case. So, no, I agree with all that. We had an incident relatively recently where I work. A guy was stuck up, he was 130 feet up a 800-foot tower. Like, it's a pretty massive structure. And he was cold and, couldn't come down or didn't want to come down, I guess. But the plan A was aerial ladder all the way. Let's move dumpsters and, drag cars out of the way in order to stick the aerial ladder up, because they were darn sure it was going to reach. And then, man, it was like 30 feet short. It's hard to gauge scale on a 800-foot tower. I was watching it, go down on the television, from home, and I'm definitely rope access influenced. I've got that training, and my plan A was to do a climb up one of the legs, traverse around aid climb style, and descend down to the guy. And where I work just does not have that mentality, not because we don't want to, but just because they've never seen it. And I think that's, might be some of the problem. And hopefully this podcast will open it up to people to investigate further. But I think there are some skills that are pretty transferable. Some not so much, but some definitely are. And I think if we'd have just had the context of how to operate in a rope access style rescue, that we might have been able to solve that problem a little bit better. In so much as our guys did not have a concept of fall arrest and work positioning. Like we don't divvy up rope rescue systems that way. Our main and belay are not we don't think of it as we think of it as a main and a belay or twin tension, whatever, but we don't think of it as work positioning and fall arrest. And we need that, whether we're up a tower or hanging on rope, that's what, 2 points are actually doing. So we gave our guy fall arrest. Like if this guy would have fallen off the tower, if he'd have peeled off, he would not have hit the ground, but like he couldn't work. Like he was stuck up there. So, do you guys in your departments, have you ever taught anything similar to, work positioning and fall arrest? I mean, those are two very rope access centric terms. Did you guys do that or not? I mean, it's pretty new concept, I guess, fire service wise. Wayne?
No, we did not in Southern California. Again, when I was on the job, the idea of a fireman taking a SPRAT class was kind of unheard of. It's obviously come a little bit more sexy in the last few years, but no, we did not. It was pretty much traditional, either top-down rescue or tower rescue.
Yeah, that's
kind of put them in those two boxes, if you will.
Yeah, again, I think a lot of places are doing it probably very similar to that. Doug, you guys, any look at work positioning and fall arrest as a separate way of looking at the world, height wise?
We did some very basic, like escape block type things, like twin tension escape blocks, things like that, where we got above them, but not formal, fall arrest type training.
Cool. Yeah. Leroy, what about you?
Yeah, actually, we were broaching that subject right before I retired and talking to the guys that are there. It is something that, we had to do some modified type of things because Waukesha is an industrial city. Right. We had no choice. Vertical was easy, obviously, but when you start moving that horizontal motion,
Yeah.
will get your attention. Walking out on an I-beam, or walking out on a steel truss.
Yeah.
Is a bit of a different animal than walking or climbing something vertical. So I know that it is something that they have acquired equipment to be able to do those things. Where they're at with their training since I left, the guy that you would need to talk to as well as I do.
Sure.
Who runs the team now. So I know that he's asked me a bunch of questions over time. He picks up a bunch of things from talking to guys like Matt and Matt W. and talking to you and just kind of seeing what other departments are doing for those type of applications.
Sure.
Hey, Kelly, I do have something to add to that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I just in Southern California, we had several amusement parks. One was in our response area, and we did do, we'll call it modified horizontal aid climbing, give it the set and protection. So we would go up the center structure out, I can't remember, 30, 40 feet, setting protection, basically change direction pulley at the top then, and then lower down to pick two people out of seats.
Sure.
The ride became so hazardous that it was removed from the amusement park and moved to the Midwest. It was no longer in California. And I see it every time I go to Kansas City.
So somebody else's problem at that point, right?
It is somebody else's problem.
No doubt. I mean, that's dipping a toe in the water of rope access. Horizontal aid climb is, that's not fire department centric. That's definitely getting closer to it. And again, that's a wholesale switching is probably not the answer, but I do think, I think if people looked at the skills and even just the outline of the, like a SPRAT rope access class, how the training goes and, what skills you're required to know and at what level, I think there's something positive to be taken from that. Again, I'm totally biased. I've been doing rope access for, I guess 9 or 10 years now. So I'm definitely into it. The department I work at, I've kind of not pushed us into rope access, but we definitely do probably more rope access skills than most other departments. We've got a couple classes coming up. We're, ascending, descending, ascending past knots, doing some, work position and, fall arrest, Y lanyards and grillon type of stuff. Only because we had a tremendous problem on this tower rescue we ran. It just, nobody had the training or even the knowledge to attack it. So, what my plan A was not an aerial tower. We were definitely, hung up on that. I wanted to climb. I wanted to climb and traverse and come down. But if you don't have that concept, you just don't have it. So I don't blame the guys. I think we just need better training in that.
Yeah, I think a lot of fire departments do react, right? They never would consider this a particular problem. Then it happens, and they go, "Well, hey, traditional rescue is not going to fix this problem. We need to look at alternatives."
No, you're right, and I always equate it with like a wildland fireman in an urban setting. If you pointed a wildland fireman at a high-rise fire at the 20th floor and say like, well, man, why can't you do that? You're a fireman. That's fire. Like, go get it. So, and that was kind of similar to it's a totally different concept, obviously, but I think rope rescue is the same way. Like, you're rope rescue trained. That guy needs rope. Like, come on, go get him. What's up? So I think, it's not the same, even though it might look the same on the surface. So that's, that's definitely an interesting point. I would hope, hopefully in the future I can do some more convincing of you, Wayne, about whether rope access is needed. I mean, on the back end of things, I'm definitely, always pushing for that for us. So.
No, I would agree, and I hope I didn't misstate earlier. I do believe, like Doug said, some of the skills are definitely applicable. I just don't know, at what point does it become, you're spending too much time on that and not practicing your bread and butter skills that most fire departments are going to come across.
Are you talking rope-wise or just in general?
Rope-wise, yeah. I mean, obviously both. I mean, but this podcast is just strictly about rope.
Definitely. I think at work I get accused of playing with rope too much, but I think the learning point and the physics involved in all of that translates so well into so many other things, and quite frankly, nobody cares about trench and building collapse. So I do get accused of it, but and there's a ton of merit in it, but I like it, and I think there's a lot to be learned there, and again from all fields, and I think rope access is one of those fields. But yeah, wholesale switching to rope access, not the answer. Like it's not the answer. But I do one other interesting point. I do think it's nice to be able to act aggressively, and I think rope access skills allow you to get yourself in position quicker and more aggressively than I don't know if traditional fire response is the right word, but the ability to get where you need to go quickly is a pretty awesome skill set to have. And the point or whatever the example I'll give, I guess, is if you look at some of the GRIMP teams from the GRIMP North America, a fire-based rope access team, they all did pretty well. They're all the fire department rope access based teams kind of did a good job. Any thoughts on that? As it relates to like GRIMP, I think that was a cool highlight of how that went. Wayne, you were super involved in that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we had a how-to on day one, and I had several people tell me had it not been for that how-to, they would have not completed that station. So I think, those skills were definitely shown to some people who are kind of like, hey, I never even thought about this.
Sure. Not cool. Doug, Leroy, did you guys see anything at GRIMP that stood out to you, rope access and fire service wise?
You first. I see that grin. I know where you're going. I think I know where you're going with this.
Did we step in a big pile of it?
No. There were some things that, and Doug and I taught together not too long ago, and we discussed this in particular. There were a few things that literally scared the crap out of me that were going on at my station.
Yeah.
The initial part of the problem, everybody solved actually very well. And except for the team that tapped out like halfway through. They said, we're never going to get done, so they just tapped out. Which is
what station were you on?
I was on the bow problem.
Okay, so it was like a confined spacey rope problem, yeah?
Yeah, it was a confined space problem, 2 rescuers in, package a victim, bring them up, take the victim offline, and it was with the vortex as an artificial high directional.
Yeah.
Then package a dummy in a litter and take them from the bow of the ship to the dock.
Okay.
So a 2-part problem. And depending on how you solved it, it was either very straightforward, or if there were some groups, there was a couple of groups that thought very creatively, and did what I would refer to as solve the problem backwards. In other words, the guy's got to get to the dock, which means I've got to have X to get him across this waterway. Then I've got to get him out of the hole and all the other things. So they split the vortex into 2 components, gin pole, sideways A. They solved it very creatively. Other groups did a more traditional, this is a confined space, solve that portion of the problem first, then we reposition, rebuild, all that kind of stuff. And the groups that thought forward or solved the problem backwards typically did a little bit better, with a couple of exceptions, who were the rope access teams, who scared the crap out of me, because other than one, none of the European teams do confined space.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's definitely...
or access teams, I should say.
Sure, no, I got you. I'd have put money on doing it. The simple solution coming from the rope access guys. I think fire departments tend to overthink it, mine included. But to know what you can do with one guy or two guys doing affecting a rescue, I would have thought the simple would have come from the rope access guys. I was definitely on another problem on the boat at that time, but no, that's interesting. Again, the confined space wise, I imagine if they've got no context in how to operate there, that would probably scare the crap out of me too. So,
yeah, well, that wasn't where the problems were. The problems were getting them from the bow of the ship to the shore.
Oh, that's interesting. I wish there's more video of that. Like I would have liked to see that. I think most people would. So,
yeah, there were a couple where it was like, oh, this is not going to end well. This is just going to be bad. And I would have, let me put it to you this way. I would have loved to have either a dyno or an enforcer in the system. Just knowing how lines got tensioned and all that kind of stuff. I'd love to have had them in because I know that they were running the ragged edge of, oh, my garage.
Oh, no kidding. Hey, that's
yeah.
Heck, well, GRIMP 2022, GRIMP NA 2022. Is that the next one? Any thoughts? we can do it there, Maybe 2023. Am I stepping in another big pile of it? So,
it all depends on COVID, right?
Sorry. The next GRIMP, the next GRIMP NA, well, maybe we can put some load cells in there just for the heck of it. It'd be interesting to see how close to the ragged edge teams are actually running. So,
if I could chime in, because I had a different problem. So I was over in the wing void at GRIMP and saw some things kind of the same way that scared me, but for a very different reason. And we had, in my flight, we had 5 different teams with 5 very different approaches on how to solve the problem. Some successful, some not. And actually, we had successful using rope access-based techniques and some successful using traditional techniques. The traditional techniques, due to the nature of the problem, were much more effective in that particular issue, in that particular site, because there was both horizontal and vertical voids to go through, and there were some offsets in between.
Oh, interesting. My scenario was that, I had the high deck where teams had to ascend, whatever it was, 100 feet and get a victim down. And, that one obviously was, favored the rope access teams. Like if you could get up and down a rope quickly, like you were winning the game with that one. A lot of it did have to do with, just good pre-planning though too. Like it was not, it was more straightforward than it presented. My problem was it looked a lot harder than it was. And people that didn't take the time to think through the whole problem definitely got hemmed up, be it rope access or traditional. So, but the actual techniques, ascending 5 people up 100 and some feet to the top, like that was, that obviously favored, the rope access crowd, but it seemed like when they tried to adapt, some of these teams tried to adapt the rope access techniques. It's kind of like, if your only tool is a hammer, you need to make all problems look like a nail kind of thing. And they had some difficulty, negotiating just with the huge racks of equipment that they normally carry in a rope access thing, going through very, very small elliptical hatches. So, and then ascending in confined spaces didn't really work out as good as just simple 4-to-1 mechanical advantages. Ironically, some of the teams that failed using rope access techniques were hauled out, at the end using simple 4-to-1s. So that's it. Well, no, that definitely something to be said for that. And again, because confined space is, more a fire department purview and not always a rope access thing. I can imagine it probably worked better. I've never tried ascending in a confined space like that would. I'm a big boy anyways. I don't know that having any extra junk on my harness and plus me would fit through there either. But and
then too, a lot of the rope access techniques are very equipment based rather than the U.S. is pretty Prusik friendly, and internationally, rope access is very seldom do you see a Prusik, and kind of along the same lines as Leroy, I saw a couple of things with tooth descenders and haul systems that made me cringe, and the only reason that it was successful is the sheer lack of haulers on the system. They were limited in how much force they could put on it.
Sure. I'm sure they did that on purpose, though. I mean, we all got to give everybody the benefit of the doubt there. But awesome. I mean, I think we're all pretty much on the same page. Does rope access belong in the fire service? Yeah, probably some of the techniques do. Again, it's just like most of the other stuff, that the fire department borrows from a bunch of different fields and, adopts to their own. Is the certification track necessary? Nah, probably not for most fire departments. But a class and the skills in that class, I definitely think tend to open up people's eyes just as a different way to view the world of rope. So, hopefully people took something from this podcast and will, at least go, try some rope access skills, try challenging yourself, try ascending and descending past a knot. If you've got a figure 8 descender and prussics for your department, try and work through the problem that way. If you're, fortunate enough to have a chest descender, handle descender, and an ID, or, clutch or whatever, try it that way. They're interesting skills. Look at the skill sheets and try them out. So there's loads of stuff on YouTube with great people, showing some of those different skills. So highly recommended. Wayne, any closing thoughts, or you good to go?
No, like I said, I think overall I do agree that some of the skills have a place, and I do agree that it's worth the guys that take the time to be proactive and at least learn some of the basic stuff. Like you said, if you go down a rope, you'll be able to get back up.
Yeah, heck yeah. Doug, closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head with, the fire service is famous for plagiarizing things, and we'd be foolish if we don't take advantage of learning, from the rope access people, arborists, and other people that function daily on rope. There's good lessons to be learned across the board.
Totally agreed. Interesting. I'll jump in real quick with the guys on rope. There was a tree care industry climbing competition in where I work a couple of years ago, and I asked the guys at the firehouse, like, hey, you want to go, watch these guys climb rope? They're like, what are we, 6 years old? We want to watch guys climb rope in trees? No. So I'm the driver, so I drove them there anyways, and totally amazed at how fast these guys could operate on rope. Like and similar to what you said, Doug, and Wayne as well. Like we were able to learn from them. Like those guys are ultra proficient. I'll never get there. We'll never get there as a department, but it's certainly neat to know what's out there. Leroy, closing thoughts?
Really, no. I think that everything has been said. To kind of tie into your comment, they had a competition in Madison. I think it was a couple of years ago in state capital here. Did a competition, similar type of thing with the arborists, and they brought the fire department. They brought Madison's HERT team out there the day before the competition and said, hey, how would you guys solve this problem? And a friend of mine was there. He was competing, and I said, so let me fill in the blanks. They said they're going to send a guy up, man in belay, climb up with a ladder or whatever. And he goes, yeah, how'd you know that? I go, spent 27 years in the fire department. Trust me, I know how they're going to solve the problem.
I know at least one of your guys said cut the tree down, though, right?
Well, there was actually more than one that said in Madison, especially because they're like, oh, just cut the tree down and go home. It's
simple solutions. Yeah.
Easiest solution. You got a bunch of truck guys, what do you expect?
Exactly.
You need that chainsaw for a reason. But he made the same comment. He said, I think that for them, it was a huge learning moment.
Yep.
Because they would solve that problem differently. A guy in the tree and a guy on the ground would solve that problem completely differently than anybody else would. So,
agreed. And probably neither one of them are wrong for their, chosen profession. So,
right.
Which is cool. And I think we can learn from all that. So, I think, the consensus is that some of the skills transfer, certification might not be the best track, but again, we're, firemen in the fire service, we're probably going to borrow quite a bit. And I think we should. I think rope access is another one. Again, the rope geeks are going to borrow more than the non-rope geeks, but hopefully we'll just keep moving the ball forward. Awesome. So for Wayne, Doug, and Leroy, and myself, Kelly Byrne, we are, I think we've hashed out, does rope access belong in the fire service? And we're interested to hear your thoughts and comments. Thanks, guys.